So you are saying you think in the next 5 years or 10 years, it just makes sense that we manufacture our own electric vehicles.
Definitely. Even sooner than that. And if we don't move, we lose our export market.
Yes.
That is the point. So it's no longer a nice to have. As a country, we need to be thinking about the jobs that we're going to lose, and creating new industries and being relevant in the global context and in the continent as well. If it's me, if I'm going to travel from here to Venda back home, I need to know that I can charge on the way. And that has been something that has hampered, the move to electric vehicles.
So how did you land on the business case? How did you land on this? Was the right business for South Africa, knowing how tough it is, knowing how the manufacturers are saying no to us, knowing the legislation is a gray area.
It was always about solving a problem. First business, we're like, okay, so EVs have a limited range when they're charged. Which industries would be prime for electrification? I think the taxi industry.
No way.
For investors and funders. There has to be an understanding about the fact that when you're building a venture, I'm not buying something and selling it and making a profit at the moment. I'm rather building a venture for future profitability. The climate agenda is not just for big business or small business, it's for every single person. The businesses that are going to make it in the future are those that have a purpose beyond profit.
That's the heart of the future.
Yes.
Is there a shortage?
A huge shortage of skills.
In what?
In anything to do with electric mobility, charging, the manufacturing thereof, battery skills in the country.
How do young people prepare themselves for this future?
Electric vehicles.
Best electric cars.
Electric vehicles aren't just the future. They're already here, reshaping the way the world moves, delivers, and connects. In the face of climate change, rising fuel costs, and global shifts in energy, one industry is becoming a quiet giant: fleet electrification. But what does it really take to build that future from the ground up right here in South Africa? And today, we're putting the spotlight on one of the most exciting business revolutions of our time, the electric vehicle revolution. Our guest, she's not just building a company, she's building a movement. She's a powerhouse founder, an impact-driven innovator, and the CEO of a company electrifying the logistics sector. Her name is Ndia Magadagela, and in just a few years, she's helped steer Everlectric into one of the boldest and most inspiring ventures in South African mobility. Everlectric isn't just a tech business, it's a bold bet on cleaner, smarter, more sustainable transport, with strategic partnerships, cutting-edge fleet technology, and a footprint expanding across industries. Welcome to Behind the Industry, the podcast where we go beneath the surface to uncover the people, the products, and the powerhouses transforming business in ways you've never heard before. This episode is brought to you by Doorways. What fascinates me about you is how you've been able to accomplish all of this, because, looking at your childhood, you would think you didn't have access, but you actually have managed to open doors. So I'm curious as to what event or people in your childhood shaped your worldview and also sparked this ambition that you have.
So my parents were those people, my late dad and my mom, who's still alive, 82 years old. I was born in a place called Amashamba I was born in Jarere and grew up in Amashamba. And the reason why we moved from where I was born is because my dad had seen an opportunity to start a small business in that place. So for me, it was always, I was brought up around business, but also around people who were not afraid to take a risk. And I think that's what shaped my worldview. And that's actually why I ended up doing what I do now.
So from a young age, you already knew that you would be an entrepreneur? Or did you discover that later on?
I always knew. So the conversations around the dinner table or the living room in the dark without electricity type of thing. Where always my dad saying, yes, it's important, education is important. So that was like very much spoken about in my house. But he always said, think about opportunities, look for opportunities to start a business, create jobs for other people. I'm talking about growing up. That was what my dad used to say, would say, I studied, I worked, I got the experience, but you have to think about how you can start a business. So that is really what I grew up hearing in the house. Yeah.
So why not just go straight into business? Why did you feel you have to study, go to corporate, take this long route instead of just going into entrepreneurship?
I really felt, especially when I was studying, I felt that it was important to make a stop at corporate. I never thought it would be as long as it ended up being. I really thought I would do my articles, get my CA, maybe do one job and then leave within 5 years. But I think as I started in corporate, as I started building a family as well, I then thought it was just not the right time to make the move at the time. And I also think now looking back, the right opportunity had not yet come along. And so by the time, I left, which was probably after 10 years of being in corporate, the right opportunity had presented itself.
So why leave? Okay, so I hear the right opportunity, but now have had things in your personal life changed where you're now comfortable enough to make that jump. So why decide, now I've served my time, I'm ready to leave?
I think my leaving was very much calculated. So I had a few years before I actually left, set the goal to say when this and this happens, then I will leave. And when my now business partner, Paul Plummer, came and said, we have an opportunity in this field, I thought, okay, I did say that when the right opportunity comes, I will leave. And that's actually just what happened. We had the right opportunity, but we also had the opportunity to keep the lights on. So it wasn't me jumping with nothing, in terms of like income.
Okay, so that means you had like a piggy bank somewhere. Okay.
I had a piggy bank somewhere. And some contracts that would actually carry us for a little bit of time while we're building the business case. I suppose that's the curse of being an Excel, somebody who lives on Excel, being an accountant. You almost want everything to make sense before you make the jump. And certainly I was that person. Yeah.
Were there any fears before you made that jump? Did you have to overcome any limiting thoughts?
Huge fears. There were huge fears.
Even though it was calculated?
Even though it was calculated. It was different from what I knew. I had 10 years of a salary, of a bonus, of being sure of a payment. That was number one fear. But I also had the fear of, I don't think I was confident enough. I didn't really believe I could make it without the big names behind me, which were the corporates I worked for. I had to deal a lot with my mind and just knowing that on my own, I'm actually also enough. I can build something. I didn't need to have, say, a Deloitte behind my name or an IDC behind my name, which are all, opportunities that I appreciate greatly. They've shaped who I am. But I still did have the fear of who is Ndia outside of saying I am the senior deal maker of whatever, because now you are just Ndia.
Yeah.
And what opens the door for you is what you know and how you sell yourself or how you come across. It's no longer backed by a business card that says a certain name. Yeah.
And how do you overcome that? Did you?
Eventually, I think I am overcoming it. I wouldn't say, it would be a lie to say I'm totally confident everywhere I go, even though I don't look like my problems.
Yes. You look very confident.
But I think how you overcome that is with knowledge. It's really by working hard and understanding your value proposition. But it's also by, I rely a lot on my business partners, on my mentors, on the people that I've come across in my life, for the support, to knock on certain doors with me, to hype me up. My family does that a lot. You can do it.
Yes.
Go and do it. Call the president. Why don't you?
Yes.
I appreciate that a lot because you need that as a person.
Yeah.
Some validation, somebody that says, okay, you're good for it. Just go and do it. Yeah.
And did you feel corporate prepared you in any way?
corporate did prepare me in a lot of ways.
Okay.
I know that people will say, no, just go and start a business. But for me, it really did. Understanding process, that's all that I learned. I learned that.
And when you say process, what do you mean?
Business process,
Business process.
Drafting a process, articulating strategy, something that I learned in corporate. And the other thing I really cannot take for granted are the opportunities to network in corporate. Unfortunately, the people that you need on this side of corporate are in corporate. So to be able to say, remember me from this and this a time, this is what I'm doing now. So I think those connections have really been very useful, but also just learning how to be professional. How do you draft a report that actually, is professional? It communicates what you want to communicate. How do you talk to funders? All of that I learned in corporate. So I have really great respect for corporate. I stayed too long, but yes.
That means you perfected all these skills by the time you left.
I think so.
And we're going to get into how did that help you a bit later. What I want to go back to is you mentioned one of your founders, Paul. So I'm curious about the origin story of the trio.
Yes.
How did you find each other, and how did you know that you were the right co-founders?
So Paul Plum and I were at the University of Pretoria together. So we were in the same class in undergraduate, and we then went to Deloitte. And at Deloitte, we happened to be on the same client at one time. So we worked together, and I think we kind of understood that we could work together beyond that engagement. While we were at Deloitte, we met Wesley van der Walt, who is my other co-founder, and he was also at Deloitte, slightly younger than us, but we all kind of got to know each other at that time. How did I know? I think over the years, because we didn't meet and then start a business immediately after. We kind of kept in touch over the years, and we spoke every now and again. And we would discuss opportunities if they were on the table. I think how we knew is just understanding that we've got similar values, understanding that we do get along as people over and above being, as friends, as over and above being business partners. And that is important. That people say business partnerships are actually the biggest reason why businesses fail. Oh. Yeah. Because people fall out, founders fall out. That is one of the reasons why they're flawed. So I'm not saying we like each other every day. We do have times where we disagree, but when the values are the same, it's really everything. None of us will pay a bribe to get a deal. It's understood. It's something that we don't even discuss because we know it is a given. But if you've got somebody, if you have a partner who has different values from you, it is difficult to navigate.
You mentioned you were friends.
Yeah.
Okay. When we hear friends going into business together, we panic.
Yes.
Because we've heard all these horror stories.
Yes.
How has been your experience?
I think mutual respect is everything.
Okay.
And I think we are able to differentiate between being professionals in the workplace, and then we do play together at times. When we're at work, we really are working. And if we disagree there, when you leave the boardroom, it's over. I mean, I don't remember not, having 3 days where we're not talking to each other because of an argument we had 3 days ago. Yes. So I think the mutual respect, and also just understanding that this is for a greater purpose than ourselves. Egos are put aside when we have to deal with the actual business that we are running. It's not about personalities. And I think the other thing that I appreciate about my business partners is that everybody understands what they are good at. Wesley van der Walt, you'll never see him in front of the camera. He's not that person. He's great in operations. He understands the bolts and nuts of the business more than I think anybody. And he understands that, and we respect that about him. Paul can sell you anything. He can sell you ice in Iceland.
So he gets the contract.
He gets the contracts. He understands that. And I have my strengths and they have theirs, and that is well understood. And we let everyone sit and stand in their office and what they're good at, and we don't try and and interfere with that.
I think you've just answered a question that most young people have, because I think young people tend to be very attached to titles.
Yes.
So when they have co-founders, then there's this sort of struggle
Who's the CEO?
Yeah, who's the CEO? But I think if I'm correct, you've answered it in saying that it depends on what you're good at.
Yes.
And that's how you choose.
That's
It's
how you
not
choose.
about who looks good on camera. It's not about who knows who. It's really about what do you bring to the business. So if you're good with numbers, CFO.
Do your number. Yeah.
Good with operations, COO. All right.
No, for sure. That's exactly. I've learned over the years that it's not about being a superstar. The superstar CEO thing does not work. We do what needs to happen in the business to make the business work. It's not about, the podcast and who is on the podcast. It's really about everything that we do is for the common good of the business. The exposure that this will give us is for the good of all of us. Doesn't matter who took the interview. Yeah.
We've been talking about the business, the business. What does Everlectric actually do?
So Everlectric is an electric vehicle as a service business. So what that means is that we lease electric vehicles to logistics players, or to anyone who's got a fleet of vehicles and they're looking to decarbonize, reduce their carbon emissions, and also to save money. Because if you do a lot of kilometers, you save money. The idea comes from the fact that different industries are looking for options to decarbonize in their processes. There's a mega trend towards sustainability. And so we thought about how do we decarbonize the logistics sector? And that is just where we chose to play. And so we provide the vehicle, the charging, we provide all the maintenance, we provide the renewable electricity. So you almost pay, it's almost like a cell phone contract where you pay one single subscription and you get the vehicle fully charged with a charging station, and all you need to do is get your driver into the vehicle. And it's really to solve the problem of I'm a fleet manager, I want to decarbonize, I don't want the headache of buying a vehicle and where am I going to charge? What am I going to do with it after the life of the vehicle? We take that out of the minds of the fleet manager.
You mentioned it's for the companies or the people that want to decarbonize. Is there a lot of those companies in South Africa? Yes. Are a lot of people committing to now decarbonizing?
Yeah, so we are B2B, business to business.
Okay.
And anybody who's running a fleet, or most who are running a fleet, are concerned about their carbon emissions. But not only that, so the cost savings with running an electric vehicle, if you're doing enough kilometers, are real. We've seen them over the years that we have traveled. I mean, we've done close to 7 million kilometers on South African roads in our electric vehicles. So we get asked this question a lot, whether do people go with us because of their decarbonization? Is that top of mind, or is it the cost saving? So the goal of business is to make a profit. So there are very few companies that will say we are happy to pay a premium to go green. But the added benefit with our solution is that it does save them money. So they can see between a 10 and 20% saving in their costs. But the added benefit, or the biggest benefit, is that they get to reduce their carbon emissions. We save them 1 ton of carbon per vehicle per month.
Sure. 20% cost saving.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you and your co-founders had decided to start Everlectric.
Yes.
What was the cost of the first car you decided to purchase, and how did you purchase it? Because we don't manufacture electric vehicles in South Africa. Where did you get this car? Yet. I love that. Where did you get this car? How much was it? How did you get it to South Africa? What were the barriers for you getting it into South Africa? So let's start with, where did you get the car, and how did you get the car?
So we go to the manufacturers whom we know have panel vans elsewhere in the world, and we say, bring us an electric panel van. We would like to run a proof of concept in South Africa. And they say South Africa is not a market that we are looking at right now. I'm talking about 2016, 2017. So this is a while
back. And these manufacturers are all over the world.
They're all over the world, and they're represented also in South Africa, right? They say, no, South Africa is not, our legislation is far behind on EVs and stuff like that. So we decide, you know what, we really believe that this is a solution that could work. We go to China. We go to Shanghai Automotive Industrial Company. They're called SAIC. They are the second largest manufacturer of vehicles in China, or globally actually. They make 7 million vehicles per year, right? South Africa, across all our OEMs, we do about 600,000. So they're 10 times our size as an OEM, right? And we say to them, sell us 5 vehicles. We would like to try this in South Africa. They say, yes, we'll sell it to you, but we were not also looking for South Africa as a market for this. So this vehicle was going to cost us 700,000 around rands, because there are import duties that are levied on electric vehicles according to our legislation. So we pay up to 40% in import duties over and above the cost of the vehicle.
Sure.
So I'm talking about getting it here was going to, all in cost was going to be about 700 at that time, right? I mean, the prices have increased now. So then we're like, okay, SAIC says they will sell us a vehicle, and we brought their Maxus brand. So the Maxus brand is the electric brand of SAIC. Yes.
Okay.
So we've got an agreement with them. We're going to bring these 5 vehicles. Now we come back to South Africa. We are looking for money to now purchase this vehicle. So what you do as a founder, you find money firstly from yourself, or from friends, family, and fools, the triple Fs.
And did you?
We didn't for the longest time. So we put in our own money. We knocked on doors in South Africa. We knocked on so many doors. It must have been a year and a half later that we did raise our first check with an investment company in South Africa called Sakumnoto Group, which is a family office. And that's how we got our first 5 vehicles into the country.
And how did you know you needed 5? Why did you decide to buy 5 and not just 1?
So we thought we would have, at that time, what I didn't say is we had already lined up some clients, the first 2 clients, Woolworths, another client, and then we thought, so we had Woolworths, we had another client, and then we thought the other one will just brand and it will be our marketing vehicle. So we will do like shorter proofs of concepts, like a 10-day one here and there to just sort of sell the concept. So we knew that only one wouldn't work because we were going to just be driving around with one. And the clients had said, the clients that we had signed up, Woolworths being one of them, had said that they want to run a 6-month proof of concept. So we knew that we needed more than one, basically. Yeah.
And when you run a proof of concept, do you charge for it? Do you run a normal contract, or is it cheaper? Because I'm assuming at this stage you are trying to prove that this business works. So you're going to do everything. Whatever they demand, you sort of give it to them. So do you give it to them at cheaper rates? Do you give it to them for free? How does a proof of concept actually work?
So for the longer proofs of concept, we do charge. So actually our initial clients paid more, a little bit more for the 6-month proof of concept, for the reason that we had raised money. We needed to start showing income on our books, and they understood that, and they understood that they need to to meet us at a certain place. For the shorter ones, we do sometimes not charge, but mostly we do charge. And when I say so, we think about how strategic is it if somebody is looking for a vehicle for 5 days and they just want to see whether it works or not. We can negotiate the rate, but for the longer ones we do charge because we had salaries to pay. We had to keep the lights on. So I think that was quite understood by our initial client.
So how long, you mentioned 6 months, how long do these proof of concepts last? So one with Woolworths and the other one with the other business. So my understanding is the one was 6 months. And with Woolworths, how long does it take before they actually say fine? we're going to go into business with you?
So it was meant to be 6 months, but we actually ran for over a year with the proofs of concept. I actually want to say 18 months. That's how long it took for the actual decision to come through, to say we are going to commercialize the solution. So for the first 2 years, we were going around acting like a big business when we were actually a 5-vehicle business, but it wasn't all. It's not a waste of time, because what I think is important is you need to prove your concept, and you also need to validate, whichever business it is, validate it with numbers and with experience. So I think that 2 years, or close to 2 years, did give us that. We could confidently say that the solution works.
Sure. So then after 2 years, what do they say? So they now say, fine, we'll take up how many of your vehicles?
So Woolworths comes to us and says, fine, we like your solution does what you said.
Saves money.
It will do. It saves money. It reduces carbon, and you guys are, you are taking care of us as a customer, most importantly. And then they say we will go with 42 vehicles.
Sure.
Yes, to commercialize this. So then we were in business, but it took almost 3 years for us to know whether we were in business or not.
And after that, were clients lining up now?
No.
Still difficult.
Still difficult. That helped, because then we had a real client, a real feedback that says this actually works. So it was easier to now go and speak to clients and actually show them real data. But, there wasn't a long queue outside of our offices trying to get the solution. It has become easier to sell it, but decision making in corporate it takes time. It takes time. And vehicles are, you replace them at the right time after a couple of years. You could reach a client now and they said, oh, you should have come last year. We just signed a 5-year contract.
Yes.
So you have to be patient with that process. Yes. But the thing is just now about being out there so that people know when they make those decisions, this option also exists.
And the funders, were they now lining up? Because you were bootstrapping, struggling in the beginning. Okay, now you have a proof of concept. Did they start opening their doors? Still difficult.
Still difficult.
Okay.
It was still difficult. And I suppose I'm saying this for anybody who might be bringing an innovative product, because you would need to be a little bit more patient than somebody who's bringing a widget that's been around and you just, it's easy for bankers to understand and they've done it before. With this kind of, with electric vehicles, for instance, they'll ask you questions like, what is your residual values? And I will say, I don't know. And they will say, what's the second-hand value of an electric vehicle? And I'll say, but my vehicle has not even been around for 5 years, as being produced in anywhere in the world for more than 5 years. So I can't tell you what the second-hand value is. So it took time for funders to understand our asset. They're starting to understand now. We've certainly raised since, the days that we were talking about earlier, but it's still a work in progress. We still have to do a lot of education, even with the funders, to just say, this is how the technology works. But they are willing and they're at least listening now. So it's different.
And post the family office,
we got other funding. So
Okay.
yes, so we did raise additional equity with another funder, Enreach. So all of this that I'm saying is out there in the public domain. And we also raised recently with a commercial bank for our UPD contract, which is UPD, which is Clicks. They deliver medicines for the Clicks group. So we did raise with Investec, and then we also did raise with the Vumela Fund, which is under Edge Growth. So from the days of from 4 years ago, things are, it is getting better. The conversations are getting easier. There is real data. Funders are coming, but they're not lining up outside. We still are knocking on doors.
Sure. And you are a sustainable business. You're an innovative business, yet it's still difficult.
It's still difficult. It's not a walk. It's definitely not a walk in the park.
Yeah. I want to go back to, you mentioned when you were approaching the manufacturers, you mentioned they raised legislation. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we don't we us normal people, we don't sit and read up on legislation,
Yeah,
you
of
know, for
course.
electric vehicles.
I didn't either until I had to be in the business.
So two
yeah.
questions. First
Yeah.
question is, when before you went and approached these manufacturers, did you get some sort of technical expertise or some sort of support from somebody else to help you identify? Because I'm guessing at this point, you don't know, you need to think about, I don't know, batteries. You need to think about where are these cars going to be charged. I don't know what other technology you would have to consider. So at this point, I'm guessing there's a lot of unknowns. Did you sit yourself, research, write proposals, or did you go and get someone else to do it for you?
So self-education was the biggest thing. And for this one, all thanks to Wesley, my other business partner,
Yes.
really loves the space. So he really taught himself a lot. I learned a lot from him as well. But also you read for yourself, what is out there, industry reports, battery reports. So you just, you do it for yourself and you keep your ear on the ground. But it's also a combination. We are not afraid to call on skills, right? On people who know what it takes to be in the automotive industry or to run, to do anything in the EV space. So it's a combination of both. A lot of it was self-education, but there are places where we do outsource the knowledge and say, and bring in the skills and say, help us here. Certainly we had to understand, how do you homologate a vehicle?
What is that?
You cannot just get a vehicle that's running in China, for instance, or in Europe somewhere, in your right-hand market, and bring it to South Africa and run it on the road. There are certain steps that you need to do, safety requirements.
Yes.
Somebody needs to come out from the department and ensure that the vehicle is safe on South African roads, so that you can get your disc, plainly put. So such things, what are the processes? Who do you call? So all of that we had to understand
And I'm
before we
guessing
did
some
this.
things you were learning as you were doing.
As you go. Learn as you go. You miss a step. Luckily, we didn't miss any fatal steps, but then you go back and you try and you fix. But it really, there's a lot of information about anything in the world, right? So you just have to tap into that. It doesn't even have to be a formal qualification anymore. You just have to keep learning and growing. Yeah.
So back to legislation.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were those policies that you were worried about, or what were the key pieces of legislation that were really looking like barriers or were really looking problematic, and how did you maneuver them? Is it still a gray area? How are you doing it?
A lot of it is still a gray area, but I think there's certainly some movement in the legislative landscape when it comes to EV. So as South Africa, we have a huge automotive industry here, which is, a contributor to GDP up to 5%.
Yes.
So there was always legislation that tried to protect that industry. So because of that, import duties are levied on electric vehicles. There's a sliding scale depending on on which vehicle you bring and the value of it. And then there's ad valorem taxes, which are it's a luxury tax. So they see electric vehicles, or certainly the legislation sees electric vehicles as like an electric shaver. It's a luxury good. So those type of policies hamper on the on mass adoption of electric vehicles because of the price difference, right? So electric vehicles by nature, they lend themselves to be more expensive than the comparative vehicle that you would have purchased, right? Which is a panel van in our case. And because of that, it hampers the adoption of electric vehicles. How we've come around that is we lease our vehicles. So our client, on a total life of the vehicle, or on a total use case, is saving over the life of the vehicle, right? The total cost of ownership of running an electric vehicle is cheaper. We lease them; they don't have to buy them outright,
Yes.
and we provide all the elements that they need, so they don't have to worry about what to do with the vehicle afterwards and all of that. So that's how we went around that legislation. But in South Africa now, we've got a white paper that is out on electric vehicles, or rather new energy vehicles. That's what they say, which then is, there will be like incentives for those who manufacture electric vehicles locally. So it's coming, but it's also slow. But you're not going to wait for everything to line up. You're going to do what you can under the circumstances. And that's exactly what we're doing. So if we can solve the legislative issues, if we can have locally manufactured electric vehicles, then the business just makes a lot, even more sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you are saying you think in the next 5 years or 10 years, it just makes sense that we manufacture our own electric vehicles.
Definitely. Even sooner than that. Why?
Wow.
Because mass adoption should happen. But not only that, if we have an industry that contributes to our GDP, like what I've said, and we export, we are a net exporter of electric vehicles, manufactured in South Africa. And our markets where we export, Europe, they say, no, by 2035, we don't want to internal combustion engines anymore. Then if we don't move, we lose our export market.
Yes.
That is the point. So it's no longer a nice to have. As a country, we need to be thinking about the jobs that we're going to lose, and creating new industries and being relevant in the global context and in the continent as well.
So as we talk about legislation, I'm just reminded of in the budget proposal, the last budget speech, there's been money allocated to transport, money allocated to energy infrastructure.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's about 200 billion in energy infrastructure. How does this affect the electric vehicles industry? Does it help it in any way?
It does. Okay. I think the intention of it, there's the intention and what will happen in real practice, but the intention of it is to put down charging infrastructure, to develop skills that will support that, to green our grid. So all of that talks to adoption of electric vehicles. The most frequently asked question is, where am I going to charge? Right. Yeah. So people say, I would buy an electric vehicle, but where am I going to charge? With load shedding, where am I going to charge? So once you see, if you can see electric chargers everywhere, then you're like, okay, there's one down the road. Even though I think, there's a use case for charging at home, for instance. But I think psychologically for the consumer, you want to know that charging infrastructure is as abundant as petrol stations.
Yeah, when I go on a road trip, I want to know that I can charge somewhere.
You can charge if it's me, if I'm gonna travel from here to Venda back home, I need to know that I can charge on the way. And that has been something that has hampered, the move to electric vehicles. But also the fact that energy, with what energy are you charging these vehicles? So people are like, but you're charging off the grid anyway. So some of that money will also go to greening the grid. So then we can say, no, but we are charging off renewable, or there's a greater energy mix in the grid. It's now, 60% renewable, or whatever it will be. I think those are the things that will, the money that is made available will really be instrumental in moving this industry forward.
You mentioned one of the things they want you think this money is going to contribute to is also skills.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a shortage?
A huge shortage of skills.
In what?
In anything to do with electric mobility, charging, the manufacturing thereof, battery skills in the country. And maybe we don't see it now because perhaps the demand is not that great at the moment. But as we prepare for this wave that is coming, you don't want to start training then.
Yeah.
Our young people have an opportunity now with these new industries that are forming to now be thinking about jobs as high voltage technicians, or as battery technicians, or as charger maintenance technicians. emissions, that kind of thing. We need to be starting to see businesses that have to do with the recycling of batteries.
Yes.
Those opportunities are going to start coming up. When we start manufacturing electric vehicles locally, where are the parts coming from?
Yes.
The nuts and bolts, where are those coming from? So there's opportunities for skills, but there's opportunities also for business.
How do the young people prepare themselves then? Do we wait for someone to launch qualifications? If those qualifications don't exist as yet, which I'm assuming most of them don't, how do young people prepare themselves for this future?
I think a lot of it is going to be driven by the likes of us who are in the industry already, who will say, but from what we need, these are the skills that we feel that we don't have. And then supported by government, the SETAs, because they are, they're the custodians of training and skills, saying, but, we are going to create, together with the private sector, the curriculum to teach these young people, but also the hunger from the young people themselves. Yeah, when you are thinking of an area of specialization, think about the jobs of the future. There's a jobs report that comes out every year, and it says which jobs will be disrupted and what new skills will be required. That is where, even parents, when they help their children on the journey of choosing subjects and choosing what to study, think about those things. There are certain jobs that will not be needed in the future. I don't want to mention them because, but
I think we should, maybe not in this episode, but I think we should start mentioning that if you are studying this, beware, because 2 years later, 5 years later, these jobs won't exist.
I mean, I'll give you a typical example. When I was younger, I used to do like side jobs when I was in varsity for someone who would bring me a box of invoices, and I would literally enter them in a journal, do box accounting. I think we used to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's as easy as me scanning an invoice, and then it uploads to an app, and then that app creates my management account. So if I had remained a bookkeeper who does box accounting, then, I would not have a job right now. So that's just the things that we should be thinking about when we think about careers and jobs of the future.
I want to go back a little bit to, I think we got excited and we started talking about Everlectric, the business model.
Yeah.
But we never really quite covered, how did you even identify this gap? How did you wake up? Because, you had never owned an electric vehicle.
No.
I don't think any of your friends,
of
your friends owned an electric vehicle. So how did you land on the business case? How did you land on this? Was the right business for South Africa, knowing how tough it is, knowing how the manufacturers are saying no to us, knowing the legislation is a gray area. How did you come up with this idea? And when you came up with it, what's the first thing that you did?
So in my case, right, and in Paul's case, Wesley was drinking the electric vehicle Kool-Aid for the longest time.
Yeah.
And he's the one that actually convinced us. But there were reasons why we were convinced. So he comes and he says, do you see what's happening in electric mobility in the world? People are doing this and they're doing that. But so as he's convincing that, I remember that while I was at the IDC, when I still was in corporate, the IDC was also a funder in the Joule project, which was the first electric vehicle that was locally manufactured in South Africa, developed, manufactured in South Africa. And there was a lot of talk about it at that time. Sure. So I remember thinking, okay, this EV concept is not new. Even my employer has seen this. So there must be something there. And I remember then after that, traveling to the US, actually we were in New York it was a holiday, and calling a ride-hailing app. I can't even remember which one it was. And then a Prius showed up, which was a hybrid. And that was the first time I was in anything, electric. And I thought, maybe Wesley was not wrong. Maybe there is something electric coming. So, but I think the underlying thing about us has always been that, or even for me, has always solving problems. I had started other businesses before where I just saw a problem and I thought, let's solve it. And at some point it was, because I stayed in a flat, I thought, where do people have events if they're in Joburg?
Yes.
So then I invested in a little property, and then I used to host baby showers and things. So it was always about solving a problem. At some point I was selling shoes and bags at Varsity.
Sure.
Because I just thought, oh, my friends want to look cute, but they won't go to Maravastad. So I will go and buy these things and they can buy them from me. So I think all of us, the co-founders, have always found problems that they wanted to solve, and it was always about that. Wesley, was in business from the beginning. After articles, they went straight into business. But the same as Paul, he stayed at Deloitte and worked there, but was also trying to solve other problems. So it's really just a culture of innovation and problem solving.
So you see this car Prius in New York. You come back. You're now convinced. You are drinking the Kool-Aid. You are so into it.
I'm sold.
How do you launch? Do you outright come talk to Woolies? Was that the first business model? No.
Not at all.
What was the first business
model? So the
model?
first business model, we're like, okay, so EVs have a limited range when they're charged. Which industries would be prime for electrification? We think the taxi industry.
No ways.
Yeah. Yeah, we think, okay.
Wait, are you talking downtown?
Yes, I'm talking about the taxi. Yeah, the 15-seater taxi that you take from Pretoria to Mamelodi. Okay. That's the one. And we think that makes sense because you do the same route every day. You go to a rank, passengers get on, so you could charge while you're there. Perfect. So the first company that we actually register is called Taxi. Tax-E, meaning electric taxi. Okay. And we think we are going to electrify the taxi industry. We go around trying to onboard clients, and I think the taxi industry at the time was not ready to have this conversation.
Who's clients?
We're going to friends whom we know. Their parents had 100 taxis, 50 taxis, and we talk to them.
So you are competing with taxi owners?
No, we go to the taxi owners.
You are in the violence. You are.
Well, initially when we were wet behind the ears.
Okay.
So we go to taxi owners. I remember Paul actually going to one of his friends that he studied with, and the dad had taxis, and saying, "Would you go electric, sir?" And he says, "Yeah, if it saves me money, why not?" And then trying to navigate that. But we realized that as an industry at that time, they were not ready.
Yes.
I think they're getting readier now.
Are they?
Yes, they are talking about going electric. They're talking from a cost point of view, but also from a trying to formalize the industry in payments and moving people. Yes, so that sort of thing. So there is talk.
I'm worried about the speed though. Because electric vehicles are faster.
But you can throttle them. So we do pull back a bit of power. But that was the first business. Those were the first clients that we thought we were going to sign up. The timing was not right. So we had to pivot. And then we thought, okay, fleets are pretty much close to that. They do a predetermined route. They park overnight somewhere. They can charge overnight. Why don't we start with them? And we will circle back to the taxi conversation someday.
Sure.
Yeah. I could have been a taxi owner, but...
I know. You could have lived the township dream.
Oh, yes.
You were bringing sophistication into the industry.
Yes, yeah. And we still will do. We will do it. Over time, I think even if it's not us, other people will do it. But I think it is an industry that could really work.
So you landed on taxis were not what you wanted to do. Okay. And then eventually you pivoted to logistics.
Yes.
I just want to go back to funding because you mentioned you've raised, you've probably had about 3 rounds. I'll just call it 3 rounds of funding. How do you choose an investor outside of just capital? Okay. Just because they have money doesn't mean they're a right fit for you. What are the other things, key things that you were looking for when you were choosing your partners or your investors?
That is a very important question. It shouldn't just be money because money is available. For us, what we look for is strategic fit. Are these the type of funders that will support us from access to markets, also additional funding if we require additional funding? Are these the kind of funders that will do that? Are these the kind of funders that will support us, not in necessarily, buying a pen day-to-day decision making, but can we trust them to bounce things off them? Because usually the funders have had a lot more experience than the founders. And so are they the kind of people who can support you from a mentorship point of view as well? So that is what we look for in a funder.
And I know that as you are going on the road looking for funding, one of the things you mentioned in your other interviews is that you participated in the climate finance accelerator in the UK.
Yeah.
How do these programs benefit you? Do they work? Are they useful? Because there's a lot of accelerators, and I think young people are struggling with, do I join? How many do I join? When is it enough? Is it ever enough? And what do I really get out of these programs?
I think it's important to do your research about what you get out of the program, and also maybe speak to people who have been on that program before. The Climate Finance Accelerator was quite useful for us from a bouncing a business case of the team, the panel of experts, but also they gave us an opportunity to travel to the UK to speak to UK funders. Wow. They had banks and private equity in one room, and we could pitch our idea. Wow. It was brutal. They'll tell you the truth. If you suck, they'll tell you suck, or they'll say polish this and do that. So that really did help. And it is an initiative by the UK government that they're rolling out, I think globally for ideas to come through, and they get funded. So that has helped. So to the point about accelerators, whether they work or not, yes, they do. But you don't want to it takes a lot of time away from you. So you need to know that you're still learning and it benefits you. You don't want to be a professional student of business. You learn about business by doing business, not by learning theory about business. Yeah.
And did you have to apply? Were you headhunted? How does it work?
We had to apply. Yes. Okay. So somebody saw it and actually called me and said, "Hey, have you seen this? They're looking for climate, for businesses that have a climate focus. Are you not interested?" And we applied, and we got shortlisted, and we got through. So
amazing. I see you wearing Maxis.
Yes.
And we understand you have a partnership with them. How does this partnership look like? And I also want to get the big picture thinking.
Yes. So let me talk about Everlectric, because that is the South African brand, that is the business. Yes. We are in Everlectric. We lease electric vehicles to logistics, right? And those electric vehicles could be any vehicle. So we are brand agnostic there. It could be Maxis vehicles. It could be GWMs. It could be Volvos. It's Jack. We also have Jacks in our fleets. So there we provide any electric vehicle that a client would need to do their business. But we also have a business called Black Slope Motors, and this is where we are the distributor of the Maxis brand in South Africa. And that's why I'm wearing Maxis today. Yes. But in Black Slope Motors, you can purchase the Maxis vehicles offhand, and we can support you with charge support, that comes from Everlectric. So we've got a partnership basically with Maxis.
And then in terms of your charging ports, are they only for Everlectric cars, or anybody can charge? Or how does it look? Or for now, it's only for Everlectric, but in the future, it will be open to everyone?
That's exactly it. So we put down charging infrastructure where our clients go. So a lot of our charging infrastructure is sitting at the warehouses of our clients, or where they sleep overnight, basically. But we are starting to put our charging infrastructure on their routes as well for the shared asset, right? Which means then client X can co-locate and charge with client Y, right? But then as you and I become when we start adopting electric mobility, that means you can also charge at that charger. So going forward, our chargers will be open to anybody, but primarily for our clients. So we will have a point where we'll come to a point where if the charger has two guns, one will be reserved purely for the clients, for our logistics clients, so that we don't block them, and the other one can be used by anybody.
And then in terms of the supply chain challenges, because you import your electric vehicles, how have you managed to, not be impacted by them? So in terms of maintaining your cars, if you need a part from China and there's issues with the supply chain, or if the prices increase, do you pass on the price to the client? How have you managed to navigate the supply chain effect or the supply chain challenges?
So we've been very lucky that we haven't grossly been affected by it.
Okay.
But I think it's also because of planning. So, plan around. If you know that there are going to be issues, then we plan around that. In terms of we just-in-time parts at times, get them in time for if we need to use them in our vehicles, so we can do that. Price changes, we either hedge if they are quite major, or we do, allow for passing them on to our clients if that's what is required. So you almost have to plan around these things. Sometimes you can't plan around it, but have risk mitigation strategies. I think to that point, it again reminds me the importance of not being afraid to start small. I think we learned how to import and, run a business with 5 vehicles. And so now when we talk about 200 and even when we get to 1,000, the principle remains the same, but we learned it from when, we still had quite a few and our mistakes wouldn't be fatal.
Yes.
Yeah.
An electric vehicle company has a lot of upfront costs.
Yes.
So one would expect that it would take a bit of time to get to a place where you're profitable. Okay, it's expected. Actually, most startups struggle with this. How long do you think you have before you hit that mark where you're like, okay, now we're established, now we're profitable?
I think we're getting there very soon.
Okay.
I think it took a bit of time. I think, to that point, I think even for investors and funders, there has to be an understanding about the fact that when you're building a venture, you are not building a business that I'm not buying something and selling it and making a profit at the moment. I'm rather building a venture for future profitability. You are building for future solution, basically. And so there has to be patience, both from the funders to the and the founders themselves, understanding that right now, what I look for when I think I am growing is the number of clients I'm able to reach and turn their decision to a yes. Over and above profitability, that's what is driving me every day. Yes, as the CEO of the company, as a founder, what also keeps me awake at night is that I would like to, pay a dividend to my investors. But I will not be able to pay a dividend until I grow my client base. So for now, that is what you want to do. You want to run as fast as possible to grow your client base, and the profitability will come. There's a big difference between building a venture and just, building a business. Yeah.
On top of profitability being one of your key focuses or one of the key outcomes you want to measure, my understanding is there's another thing that you care about, and that's the net zero targets.
Yes.
So maybe tell us why this is so personal for Everlectric. Why did you decide to go and help in this journey of getting to net zero?
The climate agenda is not just for big business or small business. It's for every single person. The fact that climate change is a reality is really the science that backs that up. And for me, I always ask myself, what kind of a world am I leaving for my children or even for my great-grandchildren? What kind of a world are we going to leave for them? So we need to make the good decisions today to benefit them tomorrow. And so, yes, right now what we do is that we provide electric vehicles to logistics, but it's really to logistics players who understand the effect of their businesses on the climate, and that makes us happy. The issue of ESG is not just a good to have or nice to have. It's really something that we need to consider: environmental, social, and governance. It has to be a top of mind. I saw a quote by Richard Branson that says the businesses that are going to make it in the future are those that have a purpose beyond profit. And it's really just us having a purpose beyond profit. Yeah.
That's the heart of Everlectric.
Yes.
You spoke about setting up our children. Now, this industry is not diverse.
Yes.
At all. In terms of age and in terms of other factors. How do we do it? How do we get it to be more inclusive?
It's us who are in the industry. It's hard. Who need to open those doors for young people. I think you mentioned that at the heart of Everlectric is climate and all of that, but also at the heart of Everlectric is training the youth. It's ensuring that there are skills that people could have. It is important that we build a solid business first, and then we train the skills for a sustainable business. We partner with businesses that will start in the future that feed into our value chain. That is at our that's what we want to do. So we are very deliberate about empowering others. I don't like that, we are still so few females in the automotive industry as we might have it. It's sad that I cannot say I have a female high voltage technician in my workshop, but the time is coming and we are deliberate about doing that. And in our way, we will do it, but we will need the support to get that right.
Sure. And what does success look like? Okay, 10 years from now, what does success look like? I know you want to retire.
Not in 10 years. I still have it in me.
Okay.
I'm still young. So success will look like growing the market B2B.
Okay.
For Everlectric, we will have a lot more business to business. Success also looks like saying we trained 2,000 skills for this industry, for instance. I'm just throwing a number out there. But having known that, Everlectric has been instrumental in skills development in this sector. Success looks like the greening agenda of the country, also, being more mature, being more deliberate for us. And, I won't be retiring yet in 10 years, but hopefully by that time we will be experts enough to contribute, with value to the discussions that will happen in this industry, knowing that we've done it, we've walked the talk, we've lived it. So I'll be that old lady who will be telling you.
You will not be old.
10 years ago. Okay, no, not in 10 years. In 10 years, I won't be an old lady.
You will not be old.
But in 30 years time when I'm older.
In nowadays,
we brought 30 years ago, we brought the first panel van electric in the country, and contribute to the greening agenda in a meaningful way.
And what were you least prepared for coming into this industry and being an entrepreneur, whether it's emotional toll or financial risk or lack of experience? What surprised you when you were now in this business? You were like, whoa, okay, I wasn't prepared for the amount of financial risk we had to take on.
What I was least prepared for was the uncertainty of business, right? I thought I knew it all. I thought I've funded a lot of businesses in my previous job, as part of the funding team.
Yes.
But having to run a business day to day and grow it, I think, you learn by doing. And that was the greatest surprise for me. But we took it in our stride. We're learning every day. We're growing every day. I wasn't prepared for that. But, I'm so grateful for the team that we have at Everlectric and at Black Slope. The entire team, because we've really we are building this together. Even the new people that are joining the team, we can rely on our team to do what needs to be done without the headache. Everybody carries their weight around here, and I'm so grateful for that.
And Black Slope is the shareholder.
Black Slope is a shareholder. So if I should go into that, Black Slope has the mobility arm, which is Black Slope Mobility, or trading as Everlectric. It's got the motors business, which is what I talked about with the Maxus.
Yes.
But we also have a consulting business, which does management consulting. We do growth consulting for clients. So that business also feeds into the Black Slope group.
Sure.
And then we also have a ventures business, which we look for ventures. We help grow those ventures, and and we see where it goes. And Everlectric is one of our ventures, but we've had other ventures in there before.
You don't sleep.
I sleep
You are doing so much. It's amazing. It's really, really amazing.
No, we love what we do.
Electric vehicles for normal people? Are you ever going to get there?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I think over time we'll get them. Our focus is B2B right now. We are seeing a lot of EVs, passenger vehicles coming online. We will start having passenger vehicles for our fleet clients. But I think over time, you never know what might happen. We are just on the ground looking for opportunities and saving the planet.
Thank you, Ndia.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
Ndia, I think I'm biased to Everlectric because firstly, my first experience was when the Woolworths panel van drove into my driveway and there was silence and I was amazed. And then from then, I found out that actually they are powered by Everlectric.
Yes.
So you're not just doing good for businesses, but you're also doing good for the planet.
Thank you.
And I think that's so necessary. I think sustainability businesses are just more than, bottom line businesses. They really should be what we all, are looking to do. Yes, because they set up our children and they make us money and they save costs. So actually it's a no-brainer to consider going into sustainability. So thank you for championing it so well.
Thank you. Purpose beyond profit. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.